into the neurology of this and talk about what does it really do? How does this really matter and affect and change anything? So the first thing that we need to understand is what neuroplasticity is. This was the greatest discovery of the 1990s. It was a breakthrough, it was a revolution in the understanding of the brain, that it has plasticity. It changes, it grows stronger and it grows weaker, and it makes new synapses and it breaks old synapses, and that's how behavior changes. We all know this intuitively, or at least through the principle, use it or lose it. So we understand that if you don't use a muscle, it's going to atrophy. If you go to the gym and pump iron, it's going to get big and strong. If you don't do anything with it, you're a couch potato, or you put your arm in a cast, the muscle goes away. And that makes a whole lot of sense, because the body wants to allocate resources to the places where they're being used. So if you're using one arm and not the other, the body says, why should I waste valuable resources rebuilding a body part that has no purpose, that's just hanging around? Astronauts know this, because when you send somebody into space and there's no gravity, the body says, well, in this environment, the skeleton is virtually useless. So I'm not going to devote valuable resources to replenish the bone, because here in space, I don't need it. So astronauts have, I believe, about a 2% bone loss per month. That's pretty dramatic. But we also have to understand that brain cells have the same fate. That a brain cell is only going to be replenished, it's only going to make new protein and stay strong if it has a purpose. So that's how the brain evolves, that's how we get better at the things we do, and we forget about the things we don't. Because the body is not going to replenish something that has no purpose. And the brain cells that are not used, they get weaker and they become unstable. And stability in the nervous system is one of the key features of a functional nervous system, is that the nerve cells are strong and stable. We've also heard the expression, practice makes perfect. Anybody has heard that? Well, I'm afraid it's not true. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And anybody with a bad golf swing can affirm that, because anything that you do over and over and over, whether it's right or wrong, becomes a pattern in your nervous system. It becomes a habit, and you can't break it, because that's the only way the body and the brain knows how to do it. That's why bad habits are so hard to break. What is a skill and a habit? Well, where does a skill reside? Some people think that they talk about muscle memory, and they talk about, oh, well, I have the dancing legs or whatever. But it's all in the brain and nervous system, every bit of it. You have 100 billion brain cells, and the way that they communicate with other brain cells is through something called a synapse. So it sends out a little tentacle and connects to another brain cell, and the brain starts making patterns. And each of the 100 billion brain cells make about 5,000 connections on average. So you figure out the total number, someone who's a mathematician. It's a lot, okay? But those patterns, those synaptic patterns, determine all your behavior. All your habits, all your skills reside in those patterns. So now let's talk about this in terms of breathing and coherence. Because people say, well, when I relax and when I do a breathing exercise and I practice feeling happy, I feel really good for the 5 minutes that I'm doing it, but I feel it's a waste of time because I can't do that. I have a life. I can't do it all the time. So is it only good during the 5 minutes, or do I have to do it all the time? And here's the answer. It's right in neuroplasticity that during those 5 minutes, you are creating new synapses. You are strengthening those cells that are lying dormant, that are responsible for the parasympathetic outflow, for that healing response. If you are always stressed, then those cells are virtually never stimulated. But if you just take 5 minutes a day, you're giving those cells literally a workout. They get stronger, you're creating new synaptic patterns, and the more that you practice those patterns, the more likely they are to fire on their own when you're not thinking about it. So the more that you practice these things, and the recommendation is somewhere between, I usually say, 5 to 10 minutes once or twice a day. And if you can do that for 3 to 6 months, you will probably never feel the same again. You will probably lift yourself to a level of feeling wonderful with no return. So that's the benefit of all of this, and that's how it works long term, that you can actually rebuild and recreate your nervous system just by practicing these things. That's about it for the basic presentation. Thank you all very much for coming. And if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer those. We will also take and run a small demo so that you can see this in action as well. All right?